This first essay we're going to work on is called, it comes from This I Believe, the series from NPR, and some of the information will come from there online. It's a great program and curriculum. I love it because it really does help us to look at what we believe individually in a manner in which we're not trying to force our beliefs on other people, but it does help you really condense and formulate what you truly believe. So, not to worry, there's going to be plenty of examples for you to look at and to read so that you know what it is you're working on. So to begin with, we're going to explain what is a personal essay. So that will be the next slide. A personal essay is something that is exactly what it says. It is personal. It's something that is meaningful to you personally. So in this essay, it will be okay for you to use the word I. Later on, that will not be acceptable. In academic writing, we usually try to keep a more objective perspective, but for this piece, we want to be very personal. We want it to be about what's happening and what we believe. So in this one, it's going to be important that you develop an authentic voice. You're going to write creating a narrative persona that the reader believes to be authentic. So the whole goal of this particular essay is for you to write about something that happened to you, a true experience. Hopefully it's a moment of relevance, a lesson that you truly learned, or when something you have thought you believed in your entire life all of a sudden became cemented and you realized, yes, I really do believe this. This really is important to me. And as you read some of the examples that NPR produces and has filtered through even and allowed to show up, you will see a wide variety of things that people choose to write about that has to do with their belief system. So it's not just about a belief about God or a belief about, something religious per se. It can be something about the belief in the power of music and how when you were really sad or something and all of a sudden you had an experience with a concert or a piece of music that just brought you out of that sadness or really spoke to you through that time, and it became important to you and you realized how music could be healing or whatever. That is a belief system, is suddenly you realize, oh man, that's really important to me. So just realize that there's a lot of different possibilities. I know that I started writing one about what I believed about education. And being an educator for many, many years, you would think that would be an easy thing for me to write about. I had to ditch that one about, 1 page in because I realized I could not do all of the things that this essay requires us to do. Doesn't mean I don't believe that education is important, because I truly do. But that particular essay wasn't working for me because I couldn't find that true life experience where, I had this epiphany and I went, oh, yes, education is important. So I have written a couple of these, and both of them I've read aloud to different classes, and I can't get through them without crying a little bit, or if I do, I'm pretty proud of myself because they are so deeply personal. So just know that this should be very personal to you. The next section that is important, and the rubric will cover this, is narrative coherence. In other words, you are telling a story. It's not a long story, but you are telling a story. And so that means there has to be a beginning, middle, and end. You will see this in the examples that you read. Sometimes people will show little clips of their lives, little snippets of a story, maybe not the full-blown story, but because you don't need to necessarily. Vivid description, so you're going to choose your words very carefully. You want to use the words that are going to be the most poignant and describe what you're feeling or the picture that you saw in your head at that moment so that your audience can do the same. Controlled and appropriate pacing means that you don't want to jump to the end and without giving us some kind of story in between. Subtle transitions means you're not going to have maybe 2 sentences transitioning to the next paragraph. You might have a word and then or next. Lively dialogue. This does not give you a lot of options in this particular essay because of the time constraints. You won't have a lot of place for dialogue. You might have a couple, maybe, sometimes. I've had some in mine, but most of the time the development is different than that. But if you have dialogue, make sure that it is interesting and realize even if you are using a real life experience and you can't remember word for word what that person said, no one expects you to do that. But you do need to keep the general context of what they were saying. So you might not remember, you just remember as a child, oh, that person said they hated me, so, put that in childese language. Who knows what that could have been? You're ugly or something. Who knows? When children don't like each other, they say the weirdest things. So just remember to put it in the dialogue that you may not remember word for word. You're still telling the truth because you're remembering the context. Rich character development, you're not going to have a lot of room for 25 characters. This is a very short, coherent place here, small, condensed area. So you need to choose your characters wisely. Don't introduce everyone. Choose only the people that are really important to that pacing of the story. And you may not bring in a lot of characters. It may be more about one particular character and how that person influenced you for that belief. Who knows? The third one is what always held me and kept me from writing about the education one so much, because the communal relevance. The reader has an answer at the end of the story and the essay instead of saying, so what? Instead of reading the entire thing and going, okay, I just wasted, 2 minutes of my life here. They have a reason to read it. There's a purpose. There's the writer's telling a story that communicates a larger truth. And maybe it's something that honestly is going to resonate with somebody else. It's not so unique to you. There's a bigger belief system that is probably going to resonate with more people than just yourself. So the purpose of telling the story is to show how this event changed you or how this moment impacted you and made you realize how important certain things might be. So one of my essays is about always saying goodbye. And I started out with talking about somebody in my family who doesn't like you to say goodbye. And then I continue on to say, but closure is really important. And then I continue to tell 3 different stories. A story about a closure that didn't happen for me when I was in middle school. Or no, did. Sorry, that one was the good one. In middle school, I had a good closure because I had a family I was really close to and they moved away. And we had really good closure. It was still painful because goodbyes are always painful, but the closure helped me, navigate that pain. And then the other goodbye was not really a good one because it was when my family moved out of the house that I had grown up in. And we were moving my parents out of that house, and it wasn't until I was 10 miles out of the town that I realized I didn't go back and say goodbye. And it seems silly, but it was really kind of important. And it didn't stump my growth emotionally or anything like that. But it made me realize, sometimes walking through a house and saying goodbye to all of the awesome memories you have is pretty important. And then the third goodbye was when my father passed away, and I go into more detail with that one because that one was pretty significant and the process of saying goodbye. But when you get done with the entire essay, you realize that what I believe in is saying goodbye is important, whether it's saying goodbye because you're going to see them later on that day or whether you don't know when you'll see them again. It's just that larger truth that goodbye is important. So I could find something to write about for that had communal relevance. For my education essay, I was just saying education is important. I can't tell you why. It's because it's who I am. And maybe I'm too close to that one, and that's why I can't tell you exactly why I believe it's so important. But for what it's worth, those are the 3 main components to this next essay. And as we continue forward, I want you to make sure that you read. The requirement is going to be to read 3 essays from the NPR site. But once you dig into that site, in fact, let's just look at that really quick. Let me show you that site. We'll go to NPR No, it's this, I believe. This, I believe. This, there we go. I believe.org. And what I like about this site is if you look right here, explore. There's featured essays, there's browse by theme. I like to go to the browse by theme. Any of these essays, quite a few of them, look at all of these. There's 4,466 on brotherhood and friendship. There's 2,000 on children, humility. Okay, let's go to humility. That's only got 500. If you notice right here, these are also done into podcasts. So if you're not one of those people that likes to read, you can listen to any of these. But if you need to have you want to read it, which I'm a reader, so you click on this, and here's the entire essay. See, it's not very long, but it tells the story. It gives you characters in here. Notice they use I, and it is going to address all three of those major issues. It's going to have the storytelling, the narrative, it's going to have the communal relevance, and it's very clear. So, the first part of this week, I'm asking you to spend some time exploring here and finding some that you like, popular culture, and reading some. And I want you to read at least 3 that you summarize. But honestly, you could listen to these. Some of these down here, these don't have podcasts with them. That doesn't mean that you can't read them because they are right here. So they're short, sweet, but so much packed into these short little things. So feel free to read more than 3. It kind of gets, you kind of get moving there and you're like, oh my word, there's 5. I believe in frogs. See, this is what I mean. You can believe in anything. You just might want to read that one before you decide whether this person's kind of funny or not. But there are many different essays to read. So read at least 3, summarize them, and your summary is only going to be a couple of sentences. Make sure you tell me who the author is. Here it's Clara. The title is Simplicity, so that I can go back and look at it if I want to. But you will be required to read and summarize at least 3 of them this week. So enjoy.